The entire globe is today the site of a momentous conflict. As each side attempts to prove to the world the superiority of its position, the conflict is fought with the words of diplomats, with gestures of friendship and help to uncommitted countries, even with cultural demonstrations. It is fought indeed on every level of man's experience, for the stakes are high. As one of the adversaries in the conflict, we see a challenge as great as any in our historic past. A challenge not, we hope, to be met and joined in battle, but to be faced and fought in the hearts and hopes of men. It is the challenge of ideas.
I believe you're never supposed to engage in a game of wits with a Sicilian, especially when death is on the line.
So that's the second most important thing. The first most important thing is never to engage in a land war in Asia. Right. But pretty high up on that list is, yeah, don't engage in a battle of wits with somebody who doesn't know what the word inconceivable means.
Was there a third thing, or was it just the two things?
I think it was just those two.
Oh, well,
because then they started drinking iocane.
Right.
It escalated quickly.
And I guess engaging in a land war in Asia, you could say, would be inconceivable.
Well, you could conceive. See, and there you go, using this word, but I don't think it means what you think it means. You can engage in a land war in Asia. You can conceive of engaging in a land war in Asia. It's a very bad idea, but you can think about doing it.
Okay, fair. That would in fact be conceivable. How about successfully engaging in a land war in Asia?
That could be inconceivable.
That could be inconceivable. What does this have to do with what we're doing today?
I'm glad you asked. We'll circle back to that. Let's do the intro.
Good morrow. My name is Nima Ashtiani, and this is Jurisfiction.
My name is Adam Kirshner, and Jurisfiction is a conversation about whether real laws apply to fictional characters and circumstances. And so today we're going to discuss whether the law of homicide should apply to cybernetic organisms that kill humans. So what is homicide? What's the common definition of homicide?
A common definition of homicide is when an actor purposely causes death or serious bodily injury resulting in death.
So what's the victim, right? Like if I cause death to a deer, right? If I'm a hunter and I cause death to a deer, is that murder? Probably
Morally, but not legally, no. The way the laws work is if someone owns a deer, it's usually a pet, or perhaps it's part of a farm. It would be considered chattel. It's a thing. You know, we consider animals things or possessions, like a car, or like anything else that you have. So it wouldn't be murder, but there would be separate laws on point. So you could have, if you're hunting deer when you're not supposed to be hunting deer, some places have specific and strict laws about that.
Okay, but so if the victim is a deer. If you're hunting deer and you end the life of a deer with malice aforethought, right? Meaning that you intend before you commit the act with a sufficient amount of time, right? It's not just like a spur of the moment thing, right? A deer hits you with its antlers and then you kill it, right? Like you've been thinking about it and you've had enough time to cool off and decide, well, maybe this isn't a good idea, but you kill it anyway. That wouldn't be murder because the victim is not a human, right? But what if you're hunting the most dangerous game of all?
The most dangerous game of a lion?
I thought a human was the most dangerous game of all.
Okay, I'll go with it.
Right.
Human is the most dangerous game of all.
So if you're hunting a human with malice aforethought and you terminate the life of the human, you cause the death or serious bodily injury resulting in the death of the human, the victim would be a human, and therefore it would be murder. Is that correct?
Yes. You would. In fact, the police would come by, they would pick you up, and they would charge you with murder.
Well, what about the other end of the equation then? Like, what about the actor? What if a deer kills me?
Okay.
Is that murder? Right. What if I go hunting?
Has the deer actually murdered you? Technically, yes. Legally, no.
Right, so I go hunting with malice aforethought, like, gee, I'd really like to kill that deer because reasons, right? and I've had time to cool down.
Isn't that usually the reason, though?
Right, because reasons. And so I've had time to cool down, but I really want to kill that deer, right? So I go and I find the deer and I kill it.
Mm-hmm.
Not murder, because it is not a human. I'm a human, but it's not a human. The actor's a human. The actor's a human. The victim is not a human, therefore not murder. Well, what if I don't succeed? I go after the deer with malice aforethought. It sees me coming to try to kill it. It runs away, and it thinks, gee, I'd really like to kill that person who's trying to kill me. It has time to cool down, but it still has malice aforethought. It finds me and it kills me. Would that be murder?
Can we hear is the deer saying these things? Can we understand the deer?
Let's go with just like the garden variety or forest variety. Where do deer live? Plains?
On my lawn, usually, unfortunately.
Okay, let's go with the lawn variety deer.
Okay.
That we cannot hear speak.
My answer would be no, it would not be. No one would come up and cuff its hooves.
Okay, there's no deer jail.
There's no deer jail. Oh, well, actually, if a deer kills someone, they might put it down.
Okay, well, that's a whole separate, like,
that's a whole different thing, but it would
right.
be...
But not because it's a murderer, right? Because it killed a human, which is not murder if it's done by a deer.
Right, but effectively it gets a one-man judge, jury, and executioner.
Well, what about cybernetic organisms then, right? Like, that, because that's our topic today, right? What if we build a robot that can move on its own and think on its own because it has an artificial intelligence?
Mm-hmm.
And let's cover it with like some realistic looking skin, right? So if you see it walking down the street, it will look like a human. And hopefully it puts clothes on, right? It's not just walking around naked.
Well, depending on what it looks like.
That's fair. So there's this cybernetic organism. It's a robot. It has an artificial intelligence. It has skin and organic tissue covering it, and hair, and it looks like a human whenever it's walking down the street. Maybe it's wearing clothes, maybe not, depending on whether you're Nemo or Adam telling this story, and or anybody else. I don't want to like.
Inappropriate, sir. Inappropriate.
Right. It depends on who is telling the story, whether the cybernetic organism is wearing clothes.
Right.
And it develops an intent to terminate the life of a human being, to cause death or serious bodily injury resulting in death of a human being. Is that actor a person for the purposes of a homicide if the victim is a human, as opposed to the deer?
As opposed to the deer. Well, I would say if you go back to my question prior when you bring up the deer, before you mentioned that it was a lawn variety, garden variety, forest variety deer.
Can't talk.
It can't talk. But if we could tell that let's say the deer, like the case of the cybernetic organism you're discussing, is self-sufficient, is able to think at a higher capacity and can communicate with us, and we can glean its intent, and these deer have been lying to us the whole time, I would say that now we have a similar situation closer to the cybernetic organism with the artificial intelligence, and that now you do have, in fact, an actor under the statute.
Okay, so the cybernetic organism, because it can meaningfully communicate with humans, and it can, we can cross-examine the cyborg.
Yes.
Right, and we can ask it questions. Did you intend to kill this person?
Yes.
So it would be it's a person for the purposes of homicide, and so it would commit homicide if the victim is a human and if there's malice aforethought, etc.
Right, and I guess we would have to get to the determination. There's a crux to this, is that the robot, the cybernetic organism, with all the artificial intelligence it has, we would have to determine that it is acting on its own volition, not the volition of another person. Even with all of its thoughts, if it came up with the ability to do it, to
like remote control, is that what you mean?
I guess like remote control, or that the thing somehow it's programmed in there already. Even if it could think on its own, if all it can do is think on its own to the extent that it's going to kill a person, it can figure out how it wants to do it on its own and everything else, but the idea comes from another person. My guess is we could still consider it chattel. We could still consider it a thing as far as it belongs to someone else. And that person could be responsible for the death of another by homicide for creating the device that killed them, which would be the cybernetic organism.
Like respondeat superior liability, something like that?
Like respondeat superior liability, like you put your car in drive and let it go.
Right. So a cybernetic organism is basically a car that you put in drive and let it go?
A little bit.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of two ways about it. One way I would say if the thing can completely think on its own, it should be responsible. However, the person that built it with the capacity to do that may face responsibility in a similar fashion.
Well, we're going to go into this a little bit more in one of our next episodes when we discuss the various murders by Black Mamba in Kill Bill, whether it's homicide. Well, I mean they're all homicides. Whether it's murder 1 or murder 2 or just manslaughter, or if there's a self-defense. What I'm thinking of is what if the cyborg is programmed to kill one person, but never actually kills that person, right? They kill a whole bunch of other people, but they weren't trying to kill those other people.
Then it's probably bad at what it does.
Probably, yeah. like it has, how many jobs would that thing have, would you say?
I'd have to say that machine only had one job.
One job, right? Kill a person, right? Like, remember Terminator? Remember like the Terminator, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, like walking around like I'll be back, and he kills a bunch of people.
Oh, but
did he ever kill like the person he was supposed to kill?
Let's see. In the first Terminator, he went back in time to get Sarah Connor.
Right, and so right, so it's Arnold Schwarzenegger, right?
Right.
We're in the future. There's been some sort of like tech apocalypse, right? And so Skynet has a bunch of foot soldiers who are just robots. They don't even bother putting, the tissue over them, right? They're just like robots walking around shooting everybody.
Right.
And they have like planes and all that sort of thing. And they figure out John Connor is the one guy who's, really resisting Skynet from taking over the entire world.
So what you're saying is he's kind of like a resistance.
He's a resistance. He's the leader of the resistance.
He's the leader of the resistance. That's why he would be resisting.
He is a resistor, right?
Because in fact, he too only has one job.
He's one job. His job is to resist. Their job is to terminate. His job is to resist. And he's doing a pretty good job of it.
Yeah, he resisted.
So they figure out, Skynet figures out, well, we got to go back in time. We got to kill John Connor's mom, right? So John Connor doesn't exist. Somehow, John Connor figures out Skynet is going to send a Terminator back in time. So he sends one of his own guys back in time, right? And apparently they can only do it once, although we discover in, future iterations of the Terminator mythos that, in fact, many Terminators have been sent back in time. So it's still unclear why they only sent back one Terminator, but they send one back to 1984. And Kyle Reese is the guy who John Connor sends back.
Well, actually, I think I may have a theory as to that point, just as a quick tangent. Because it would be a little strange if, like, 20 Arnold Schwarzeneggers were barreling down the road. Someone might notice something's up.
Yeah, but they have different models, right?
Well, later on they had different models.
Right. So why didn't they just later on send them all back to the same time? Right? There's no reason why they can't send... Right, so let's say in 2050, they send one model back to 1984.
Okay.
Let's just, for simplicity, say it's January 1st, 1984. Although people who have, the DVD, I'm sure they can figure out exactly what day it is. Whatever. Good for you. So in 2051, they send back another Terminator to January 1st, 1984. So now there's two Terminators.
Okay.
And in 2052, Skynet sends back a third Terminator to January 1st, 1984. And they just keep going. Like every year, they send back one more Terminator to the exact moment. Right? Why don't they just send back hundreds of Terminators?
Well, because Skynet's doing it. Skynet may not be creative. I mean, he kind of made the same thing over and over. See,
they're thinking inside the box.
They're thinking inside the box, and the box happens to be the box of Skynet, which I assume is a box, like a almost like a computer shell. Skynet is still a program, right? He's evolved a bit. He's all kind of, let's kill all the people, let's get terminating, and he's like, okay, well, we'll just send one guy back. This guy's got it covered.
Right.
And I guess because history doesn't change and John Connor is still there, Skynet should know that the mission failed, but I guess you can't really tell if the mission failed until later, because how do you know that the Terminator actually failed and just didn't take longer to do the job?
Oh, so maybe they just assumed that it worked.
I mean, because the resistance also is underground and hiding. So, if John Connor's not popping his head out, maybe they're like, oh, well, we got him, but there's still a resistance. Maybe someone else did it. So they may
right. So maybe John Connor never actually surfaced again, and they just said, oh, we won, we did it, we got John Connor, but gee, it didn't really end the war. Or maybe they assume they did succeed, the Terminator, the one Terminator, right, that they sent back to kill Sarah Connor did kill Sarah Connor, but John Connor was born anyway, right? Like maybe they can't figure out that it didn't work.
Right.
That would explain why they only sent one back, right? They were overconfident. They thought it would have succeeded, assumed that it did.
And also remember, these things are tampering with timelines. So maybe Skynet also had a theory of like, well, we shouldn't send all these back because timeline reasons.
Sure. Maybe whenever they sent back a different Terminator to a different time, somehow it affected the remaining course of human events, and they miscalculated the whole John Connor thing.
But now, here's a question: is who keeps calling them Terminators?
Right. So Kyle Reese is the guy that John Connor sends back to protect his mom, Sarah Connor. Right. So Sarah Connor goes to some nightclub, and she's dancing, and then like the Terminator shows up and just starts shooting everybody. Right. And Kyle Reese is also there, right? Because he's sent back to save Sarah Connor. He goes, "Come with me if you want to live," and they run away, and the Terminator's chasing after them. So he goes.
He's also there to father the leader of the resistance.
Well, I don't know if he knew, right, that his job was to be the baby daddy, right? Like maybe he didn't.
Also, isn't that kind of creepy for like John Connor if he knows that Kyle Reese is the father and has to send him back for specifically the purpose of being born? He knows he's got to send the guy back to be with his mother.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe John did know, right? And he's like, "Oh yeah, my mom told me about Kyle Reese.
Yeah,
showed up 9 months before I was born." And yeah, so Kyle Reese says, "Come with me if you want to live." And they run away, and Sarah Connor's like, "What? You're a crazy person. You're talking like a crazy person." So he goes, "I'm here to help you," and he gives his like whole military thing: Reese, Sergeant, TechCom, DN 38416, assigned to protect you. You've been targeted for termination, right? And she's like, "You're talking crazy talk. I don't believe you. I don't trust you." And he goes, "Listen, understand. That Terminator is out there. It can't be reasoned with. It can't be bargained with. It doesn't feel remorse or fear, and it absolutely will not stop, ever, until you're dead."
By the way, did you know that was his designation right off the top of your head?
No, I wrote it down. I'm reading it outline.
Oh, okay.
No, I have no idea what Kyle Reese's. I didn't even know what TechCom was, right? Like, it's on my outline.
You could have said yes, and I would have believed you.
No, I don't want to be known as the guy who knows Kyle Reese's serial number. Even if it were true, I wouldn't admit that I know that. All right, so he tells Sarah Connor, right, this is a Terminator. It will not stop. It has one job. That job is to kill you, right? Mm-hmm. Well, how did that work out for the Terminator, right? How did that work out?
Well, that one job,
yeah,
he did not do it.
Right, he was supposed to kill Sarah Connor. The Terminator was supposed to kill Sarah Connor. Mm-hmm. He did not kill Sarah Connor.
No, he was quite bad at that, actually.
Didn't really terminate Sarah Connor. Which, to be fair, was because of Kyle Reese and Sarah Connor, right? Like, but for the ingenuity of Kyle Reese and Sarah Connor, that maybe the Terminator would have terminated Sarah Connor. But that's not the only example, right? Terminator 2.
Judgment Day,
right?
Judgment Day, yeah.
So Skynet develops a different kind of Terminator, right? It can, like, become semi-liquid and make weapons out of its hands and...
Oh, yeah. Oh, but only, like, stabbing weapons, no mechanical parts.
Right. Yeah, no mechanical parts. And so it can, when it touches something, it can then replicate that image, right? It has a super fast processor, right? It can just like scan things like super quickly and then take the shape of other people. And so it does, right? It goes and it kills John Connor's foster parents, and then it like walks around and it looks like them.
Right.
And so then like the same type of model of Terminator that came back and wasn't really good at its job the first time.
Right. The Arnold Schwarzenegger one.
Right. John Connor sends back the Arnold Schwarzenegger one, right? Which is notoriously bad at doing its one job, right? But they send it back anyway. Mm-hmm. So it's the first model, the T800, I think is what it's called, versus the second model, the T1000. And the T1000 is supposed to kill John Connor. Does it kill John Connor?
You mean the T. Robert Patrick?
The T. Robert Patrick.
T. Robert Patrick goes like, does it kill John Connor? Let's see. And that was its one job, right?
Yeah, it also had only one job, right?
It had one job.
It can't be reasoned with. It won't feel, remorse or fear, and it won't stop until it kills John Connor.
Yeah, and hence the line, have you seen this boy? It's the only thing it's looking for, is that one kid.
Yeah.
No, he does not kill John Connor.
Doesn't kill John Connor.
Doesn't kill John Connor.
He had one job.
He had one job.
Didn't do that one job. You know what? I'm starting to think people keep using this word Terminator, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Kyle Reese uses it. Sarah Connor uses it. John Connor uses it. Even the Terminators use it, right? Like, in Terminator 2, doesn't the Arnold Schwarzenegger model tell John Connor there's a new model of Terminator, the T-1000?
Yes.
So lots of people are throwing around this word Terminator. I don't think it means what everybody thinks it means, right?
No, but you know who is actually batting 1,000?
Who's that?
Everyone not the Terminators, the Resistance.
Right.
In fact, the Arnold Schwarzenegger in the T. Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator 2 is no longer a Terminator, but now it works for the Resistance. And you know what it does? It had one job, right? It had one job: protect John Connor. And you know what it does?
I feel like it protected John Connor. Is that where you're going with this?
It protected John Connor. So
basically, you got to be part of the Resistance if you want to be able to do what you do.
I mean, we might be able to expand that more and just say you have to be not a Terminator to do your job.
Right. Although, yeah, right. So it's not the Resistance, right? Because Kyle Reese was part of the Resistance, and he's the one who told everybody back in 1984 and 1990. I guess 2 was it 92 when Terminator 2 came out?
Yes.
Yeah. So he doesn't say it, but they used the information that he gave. Sarah Connor used it to tell John Connor. Right. It's not like a per se Resistance thing about being correct, because he was wrong, right? Like, he's the one who said it was a Terminator, and it didn't really terminate the target, right? A Terminator is a...
That's a question is, does it have to terminate the target, or does it just have to terminate things?
For it to mean what Kyle Reese thinks it means? So is it general or specific, right? Is a Terminator a general Terminator or a specific Terminator?
Well, I mean, technically, it still only had one job: terminate that one thing, and the one thing it didn't do was terminate that one thing. But things did get terminated.
Right. Kyle Reese says you've been targeted for termination.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So maybe everything, maybe all of the other victims have also been targeted for termination, and Sarah Connor is just like one of many targets for termination.
Right.
So maybe it actually does what Kyle Reese thinks it does, with the exception of Sarah Connor.
With the exception of the thing it's supposed to do.
Well, but if it, I don't know the names of any of the other victims in the first Terminator, right? But if those were targets, and the Terminator is a thing that terminates targets, and by terminate, we mean like to end, as a euphemism for assassinating or killing. Well, maybe it does do what Kyle Reese thinks it means. But if it means specifically, if it's not a general Terminator, but a specific Terminator, if the only person that is specifically was programmed to terminate is Sarah Connor, well, then maybe it doesn't mean.
Yeah, it's so bad at that. Bad at that. And then when it's programmed to do something other than terminate that one thing, like save that one thing,
right?
All of a sudden it's batting 1,000.
So savior, right? It's not a Terminator; it's a savior.
Mm-hmm.
That changes everything, right?
It's the non-Terminator Terminator.
The Terminator that wasn't.
The little engine that couldn't.
Right. Yeah, the little Terminator that couldn't. Right, Terminator, Kyle Reese keeps saying that one word, the Terminator.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it means what Kyle Reese thinks it means. He should be calling it the savior, right? Or the thing that does not terminate.
The thing that does not do what it is supposed to do. The thing that had one job.
Right, general Terminator maybe. Specific Terminator, no.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, another problem solved by Jurisfiction. So let us know your thoughts. Is the Terminator a Terminator if it can't terminate the thing it's supposed to terminate but terminates other things? Or is it not a Terminator because it can't terminate the thing that it was meant to terminate?
Please let us know. We love to hear your thoughts. We're on Twitter at Jurisfiction1, Facebook.com, Jurisfiction, Instagram.com, Jurisfiction.
And as always, if you have any other topic ideas you'd like us to discuss, any movies, shows, songs, whatever, and you wonder, can they legally do that? Let us know, and we'll look into it and see if we can make that a future topic to go over.
Or words that you think mean something and you want us to discuss whether it means what you think it means.
Yes, if Inigo Montoya ever comes into play again in some point in your life, let us know. We'd like to hear it.
Thank you for listening.